So Brandon, game plan, I'll mainly drive and feel free to jump in and pepper anything in as you see fit.
Of course. Yeah, I will keep track of the chat.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. Uh, this is the last installment of this week's Daily Lunch and Learn. I am Corey Anderson. I am coming to you live from Chesapeake, a few miles down the road from our world headquarters. And joined along with me, my esteemed guest, my colleague, Brandon Pierce.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Pierce. I'm a POC builder at Decisions, and I'm also located in the Virginia area, more Norfolk side, so about 30 minutes away from headquarters. So happy to be here and help you guys today with your questions.
Right. And with that, we didn't have any pre-supplied questions, so the floor is open. So if anyone wants to put in the chat, put in the Q&A panel on Zoom, any questions that you all want to explore today, the floor is yours. All right, so a question just came in. When configuring scheduled jobs, is there any thought on allowing failures to be assigned to a group instead of a single user? Great question. So by default, when we're setting up scheduled jobs, and I'll jump over to my handy dandy studio over here and kind of walk through scheduled jobs first and talk through how what Chuck is talking about when he's saying, can they only be assigned to a single account on failure? So when I jump to in system jobs and events, scheduled jobs, if I add a new scheduled job, we'll just say that this is going to be my test scheduled job. And I'll pick an existing flow here and just a blank flow. And create task if job fails. So if I create that task, I can specify who is going to be assigned that task if the job fails. So there is not a way on here to say what, like specify anybody other than a user who to assign that to if the job fails. So let's see. And I'm not seeing the option here on who to even set up as the account to.
It's on scroll down a little bit. It's on the assign to user on failed. It was grayed out. Gives you a pick option. There you go, up a little
here. Bit. Okay, assign to user on fail. So yes, so you can only assign it to a single user. If you wanted to have, say, a more generalized assignment or exception handling behavior, you'll have to configure that within the flow itself. So if I jump into that flow, which if I find it, here it is, and if I edit that flow, and right now it's just a blank flow, and let me jump out of that and actually create a flow here. So this would be my test scheduled job. And so I can build in my logic between the start and the end step, but I can also add in custom exception handling behavior within this flow if I need to have that. So I can drag over a catch exception step so that if any uncaught errors or any steps, error for any reason, it'll actually jump to this catch exception step that I can then drag over a custom task to manually, or to as a designer, I can configure how I want that exception to be handled for this specific process. So it's a little bit more involved than just saying, at the scheduled job level, who I want to notify on a particular failure event. I can actually give specific flow information. So, if an API call failed, I can show a form or show a task to a user to say, this API call failed. This is what was presented. This was the error message that was gone back, or that was given back. And I can add in steps after that exception handling task to say, do I want to jump back and retry that API call? Do I want to update the information that's within that flow and try or jump to the next step? So I can add in a little bit more specific exception handling behavior. So that's current state. I think that this is worthy of what we call a developer task. So, instead of just being able to assign the failure to a specific user, I should be able to choose groups here as well. So I'll add that as an item to follow up with our development team to add in that option to choose a group instead of just an account here. But great question.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. So floor is still open for more questions. Just writing down my notes for for the team to follow up on that. All right, another question came in. When setting up SAML, say through OKTA, can one still set up sync groups through AD? So that is a great question that I am not the best person to answer here, because I'm not one of our single sign-on experts that we have on the team. And this is coming through from an anonymous attendee, but whoever you are, if you want to send in a support ticket through sending an email to support@decisions.com, we have some powerhouse SSO experts that have set up different types of authentication mechanisms throughout Decisions, every way from Sunday. So I'm sure that they can are better poised to answer that particular question. I don't want to confuse the issue with trying to address it and blunder my way through. So, all right. Next question. looking to post a message to a Slack channel. Went to start an initial flow, but didn't notice any technical documentation. Can you walk through on how to set up that interaction via flow? Absolutely. So I know we have a Slack module now on how to set up Slack integration. So showing you how to navigate to our modules. It's under System, Administration, Features, and I haven't actually explored the Slack module, so this could be a good opportunity for us to look at that together and scroll down through these modules or through these things to install. And here's our Slack module. And I'll click install.
Okay. Yep, I got that.
Okay. So let me create a new flow here. Now that I have my Slack module installed, I'll say Slack integration. So there are some prerequisites, being that I've done this a few different ways in the past. I know that you have to set up some type of authentication, some type of user credential access from Decisions to your instance of Slack. But once you have that set up, if you go under integration, there should be a Slack Messenger. So here's creating a channel, and you can choose the channel name. Looks like it requires an OAuth token to set up. So before setting up these steps, let's kind of back up here and see in our settings, there might be some Slack settings. No, doesn't look like it. Let's see in our integrations OAuth. Let's see. Do we have anything for a Slack provider? Well, when all else fails, let's turn to documentation. So Slack. Doesn't look like we have too much documentation on Slack here.
Corey, I think I have a link for from Slack API for generating a token, but I can put that in the chat here. Let me see. Can I just? I wonder if everyone can see this link here. I'm gonna put copy and paste. Can everyone see that in the chat?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. So that is documentation to the Slack API. So that's how to interact with this service via the token.
Okay.
So
yeah, I have to go in there. Okay, I got the link here. Thanks.
Okay. So once you have that token, so what that token provides you is basically a system-to-system connection between Decisions and your instance of Slack. So your chat messages, your chat channel within Slack. So once you have that set up, and we go back to our Lunch and Learn, Slack integration, we'll use that token, which will be created on, let's say, on behalf of you. And so any interactions that you do, like creating a channel, it'll in Slack, it'll say, a channel XYZ created on behalf of Josh. So in one.
Okay, so for each step feature, post message and channel, create channel, in settings, I just have to have the token, and I can generate the token in the Slack API.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then I'll set that. Okay. That's straightforward.
Okay.
Okay, so then the only thing I'm missing then is the token.
All right.
Yeah, because I saw the feature, I saw create channel, I downloaded the module, I have all the feature steps, post message create channel. So yeah, appreciate it. I'll go through the link and generate the token.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Next question from Alex. What should be the best approach? What approach should be used to build a multi-language application? And he says that he thinks he found documentation for that. So multi-language support. So let me start with a little bit of background on how our translation engine works. So everything in, say, everything that would be rendered within the portal view of decisions. So not things necessarily in the different designers or in the flow designer are going to be run through that translation engine. But anything that's going to be shown on a dashboard or in a report is going to be sent through that translation engine. So first, let's talk through or go through what does localization look like within our documentation page. So localization is going to be everything from translating the date and time to be more specific. I have a US bias, so I like month, day, year in my date time, like when I see that on a dashboard. But in the UK or in pretty much everywhere else in the world, they like to have day, month, year. So that is one part of localization. But when we're talking about localizing to a different language for multi-language support, we can set up a different language as well. So to set one up, we would go to system data, languages, master translation list. That's going to kick off our translation service that's going to look through all of the different areas or all of the different phrases that are used within the front end application. So if we go back to my studio, everything that's rendered on this dashboard, so designer view is going to be a phrase that's going to be run through that translation engine, so that when I say that I want to create support for Spanish, it's going to take this phrase and create a task for somebody to translate that phrase into Spanish. Same with any of these column headers. So name, tags, modified by, modified date, and the same for, say, flow is going to be run through that translation engine. So I'll go ahead and walk through what that looks like here. So it was under system data, languages. So system data, languages. So first we have this master translation list. If I go to add a language and we call it, say, Corey Speak, add a language here, and we go into this language, it's going to look, there's not really much on this environment right now, so there's not going to pull too much for me to translate. But if I wanted to say, set a translation for include subfolders to Corey Speak, we could say, we'll say that I'm SpongeBob, and everything is just going to have inverse case. So now, whenever somebody is using that language and this phrase comes up on the end user portal, it's going to run through that translation engine and change include subfolders to include subfolders. And I guess lastly, how do you set up one account versus another to use a particular language? So if I go to our accounts, which is under system, security, accounts, and I'll go to my account and I'll edit, I can choose what language that this particular user is going to use. I can't remember if it's, go ahead.
Do you set it up in culture?
That's what I thought it was another dropdown, but it doesn't look like it's under culture. Let's see, where is, oh, language, here it is. So in language, we have query speak and test language. So now if I ever find, let me go in here and find something else. Well,
So before you go too far,
yep.
What is the difference between language and culture?
So
a question coming from an immigrant is it looks like a pun, but it's not.
Right. Yeah.
But I saw in the culture where the browser strings that you use to define languages. When you did a drop down, when you click on the drop down for culture in the user account, the drop down was showing language.
Right. And at this point, I would phone a friend for Bracy, who actually did a great webinar on the subtle yet very distinct differences between what is meant by localization and what is meant by language in a webinar that he and Jessica did, I think closer to a year ago. Let me dig that up, because again, I don't want to muddy the waters by talking to my probably shallow view of understanding there.
I know for sure that when you change the user culture, that the date time formatting changes depending. So that's one thing. Not sure what the whole thing changes, but I know that for sure.
I can post in the chat channel here that a link to that webinar. Okay. So, Alex, happy to follow up. Gracie, who actually both Bracy and Jessica, who put together this webinar a little while ago. They're out this week, but we can definitely follow up with you next week and get you a specific answer there.
Perfect. It's not urgent, but it was just a good curiosity. So
yeah, it is it's a good question and something that requires a little bit more in-depth understanding and follow through from our part.
But then one quick thing is, once you set up that language translation table, and you define that Alex will be using Spanish, for example, there's nothing else to do, right? In the portal, the decisions will automatically translate everything that appeared in one language into the target language. And I imagine that applies to, you didn't say that, but I imagine that applies to forms as well, right?
Correct, yes.
I think that where it could break, I'm thinking aloud here is, but I don't know, is will the translation look into static definitions that are applied in, for example, drop downs or in states?
So that is a great distinction, because I'll show you where the translation engine will pick up information to change and where it won't. So when I add, say, a label here, and it's static, so this is going to be static text, that is something that's going to be picked up by the translation engine as a task for somebody to come in and translate to the different languages that you want to support. But when I add over, say, a label, and I choose the label from data name, this is an area where that is going to be on the designer to populate the correct language or the correct phrasing of what information is going to be on this form. So similar to your example of a dropdown, anything that's held within this dropdown, even if it's static, is not going to be incorporated within the translation engine.
Hmm. So how do I tell decisions to not write more static text, but rather, if say in Spanish, it would be más texto estático? How decisions know?
Mm-hmm. So I'm writing this down as something that I'm going to follow up with Bracy on.
Yeah, no problem.
So give me 2 seconds to write that down.
I realize that I'm a bit lazy because I just found the documentation. I could try this on my own, but if there was a quick answer to all this, I wanted to hear it. But that's fine. No rush.
Yeah, and given that, you know, when I've put projects together in the past, it's always come up to, can we translate just this static text? And I haven't dove into, you know, how do I localize it so that all the text on the form, be it generated from the flow or from, you know, just this static text that's going to be presented here, how do I make sure that it is all following the language that I've chosen? And that's great questions, stuff that we can follow up on. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
thanks. All right. So Chuck has a question of, when will version 7.5 be available to download and the release notes updated on the resources install page? So I do not know the answer to that offhand. Let me check our release notes here. So in order to view the release notes, if you go to our documentation page and you go to where this dropdown is to select the version, there's also where you can see the release notes. So our dot releases follow like a monthly release cycle. So we can see that 7.4 was released on July 9th. So 7.5, you know, following that same cadence, will probably be released sometime mid-August.
The reason I asked was the support page, when it said 7.5 was expected to be released today. And when you look at the support page, it says 7.6 is going to be released in August. But thank you nonetheless.
Gotcha. And we can follow up with you because let me check the releases page.
Yeah, no worries.
That we have. So
yeah, typically, like, because what we've seen is the monthly releases are typically the third week of the month, around the 19th or so. Like as you see, 7.40 came out in June 16th. The expectation is around July 16th or the third week in July, 7.5 would come out. There was a patch, I guess, with 7.41. So yeah, we just had some folks. We're rather new to decisions, and I got a team of developers that are loving it, and they were kind of itching to see what fixes or new features would be in 7.5. It's not a rush. It's just, you know, it's like the day before Christmas.
Yeah, fully understand that there.
So.
All right. Yeah. So Maurice, if you can follow up and see when a what
Yeah,
time
the
span is
target
there?
date for 7.5 is to be released 7/23, so tomorrow,
Okay.
and the release notes will go up right up when the 7.5 released.
Thank you both.
Great question. Thank you, Maurice. All right. Any other questions for today? Thanks, Alex. All right. I'll leave the floor open for 5 more minutes. If there are no questions, I will leave you all to enjoy the rest of your lunch. Yes. The subtle U differences between the King's English versus we'll say the rebellious English. So Alex was pointing out that he was saying your honor in English versus UK English. Subtle yet distinctive differences. Always the most fun part of a front-end developer's life is to try to tweak out what is the business logic between the UK English and American English. So all right, everybody, have a happy rest of your Thursday. Have a great weekend, and we will be back on Monday with the next installation of Lunch and Learn. Thanks for spending your lunch with us. Bye now.